some light on behavioural economics and probability and the psychology around it. Up until very recently, for the last 8 to 9 years, some of you may know I've been a professional poker player. So dealing with probability and the psychology is something I've dealt with on a day-to-day basis when playing, sometimes minute by minute. Poker is played versus either another person or people, and because of the financial risks at stake, I believe that the psychology is heightened. Poker in some aspects, in my opinion, acts like a microcosm of real-world economics, and I'd like to show you how. In 1979, two people called Kahneman and Tversky created something called prospect theory, which is still used today. It's called this because it's how we make decisions about a prospect, and a prospect is a gamble. It's about our decisions under uncertainty. Within that, there was something created called a value function. And if you have a look at your tables now, there is a graph of the value function on there. Sorry for it to get very lecture. I just wanted to make sure that everyone at the back could see it all. Has everyone got one? No worries if you can't. The way I explain it should make sense anyway. So as you can see, this is a cross here. And in the middle of this cross would be someone's, say, net worth, their financial wealth in monetary terms. To the left, as you can see, would be a loss to that wealth. To the right would be a gain. Here's where it gets interesting. The vertical line is the emotional attachment a person would have to either the loss or the gain. So I think by looking at it, you'll see as well that the interesting thing about that is just how much emotional weight we have around absolutely any difference in our wealth at all. I mean, it's almost spooky, to the point where if you were walking here today and you lost, say, 10, 20 pounds from your pocket, you might feel an over-exaggeration of emotional attachment to that amount. In long term, in future wealth, it shouldn't make a difference. I'm not saying you shouldn't care about it, I'm just saying that the emotion assigned to it might be heightened. You might also see that here, the losses don't outweigh the gains. So you might have, if you lost the same amount or gained the same amount, you feel a more higher attachment to the loss. This can have its benefits, but also its drawbacks as well. In big business, companies are trying to work out, as us as consumers, where we're paying attention to. And I believe that this is something that big businesses will put a lot of money and investment in, because they can see that this is where our emotions are. You might see insurance companies acting around here, loan companies, lots of gambling and clever marketing, all to capture our attention. You can also see that after a little while, we sort of lose a little bit of emotion after the amounts get bigger. And this is really interesting as well. So say if you were going to buy something for £40 and you knew that maybe you could get it for £30 elsewhere, you might go all the way across town just to get like £5, £10 off, might go on Amazon, hunt the internet, you know, we all do it. But the interesting part is if we were to spend, say, £300 and we knew that we could get £10 off somewhere else, we might not have, by looking at this, the same amount of emotional gain and sort of, you know, momentum to do that. It's almost like the same amount doesn't mean as much to us, which I think is very interesting. And then there's lots of great people in this room who are looking to get into business, get quite entrepreneurial in the future. And I think for you guys, this is a real eye-opener as well, because you're going to have to get really comfortable operating in this area here. There's going to be loads of highs and lows on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's something to, you know, keep an eye on. Personally, I think there's a lot of fun to be had in here once you get used to it. It does take a little bit of time, but just having awareness of it is the first step. So earlier, I asked you about the lottery, which brings me on to my second subject, which is something called the weighting function, which is how us humans deal with probability. So the chances of winning the lottery is 1 in 14 million. But the problem is that we're still very primitive as a race in the way we deal with numbers and probability. So if we think about it, what does 1 in 14 million actually mean? I mean, if we just sort of sit here for a second and just sort of try and digest that number, I don't know about you, but I almost go just completely blank. You know, you might be able to make a comparison to maybe a flight going down or something, but that's just a comparison. It's not, you're not dealing with the actual number. So what they found in the weighting function was that we're sort of chalking it up to sort of 3 possibilities. The first possibility is that it's just so unlikely, the probability is just so small that I'm never going to win, it's not going to happen to me, and people just chalk it up to just you know, 0. And I believe these people are the ones that aren't really interesting. The second part is that people are then saying that it's possible. But what does possible mean within 1 in 14 million? Because we can't digest the number, we're sort of just over-exaggerating the possibility in our brain, and we're chalking it to like 30–50% range of what it actually is, which is really fascinating. The next step is where, and I believe this is where marketing's involved and driving around our emotions, is some people exaggerate it to like over 90% of the actual number. And that's why we can walk around and sort of think that it's very possible for us to win the lottery. I had this problem with flying. I had an irrational fear of flying, and because of that irrationalness, I couldn't access, the part of my brain that could, make out what was going on. So I chalked it up to sort of 90% or so, and through understanding this theory, I've managed to sort of unhook from that, and amongst other things, got over my fear. So I believe, again, us as consumers have to deal with this stuff on a day-to-day basis, and it's just something to be very wary of. Over the last 8–9 years, I think that's two of the things that have been really important to me and helped me on day-to-day. And I find them really interesting, and I hope that they can add some value to you all as well. Thank you very much.